If I asked you why you're tired all the time, you'd probably have an answer. Maybe it's because you don't sleep enough. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's school. Maybe life has simply become more demanding. But here's something strange. Millions of people wake up tired, spend the entire day tired, and go to bed tired, even on days when they barely do anything physically difficult. Think about that. How is it possible to feel exhausted after sitting in a chair for most of the day? How is it possible to feel drained before you've even started working on the things that matter? Most people never question it. They assume that's just how modern life feels. But what if the real reason you're tired isn't what you think? What if the problem isn't how much you're doing, but how many times your attention is being pulled in different directions? Because the hidden reason many people feel exhausted has nothing to do with muscles. It has everything to do with attention. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Let's start with a simple question. How many things are competing for your attention right now? Not today, right now. A message you haven't replied to, a task you've been avoiding, a notification waiting for you, a goal you keep thinking about, something you should remember, something you're worried about, something you're planning, something you're postponing, something unfinished. Most people think these things don't matter because they're small, but your brain doesn't experience them as small. Your brain experiences them as open loops. And open loops are expensive. Imagine opening 50 tabs on a computer. The computer still works, but it's slower, hotter, less efficient. Now imagine doing that every day for years. That's how many people treat their minds. The problem isn't one tab. The problem is hundreds of tiny unfinished thoughts constantly running in the background, and every single one demands energy. Not enough to notice individually, but enough to change how you feel. This is where psychology becomes fascinating. Researchers have long known that switching attention comes with a cost. Every time your brain changes focus, it doesn't instantly move. Part of your attention remains attached to the previous task. Then another task arrives, then another, then another. By the end of the day, your attention has been fragmented into hundreds of tiny pieces, and that fragmentation feels like exhaustion, which means something surprising. The most exhausted people are not always the busiest people. Read that again. The most exhausted people are not always the busiest people. Sometimes they're the people whose minds never stop switching, checking, thinking, remembering, worrying, scrolling, comparing, planning, reacting, repeating, all day, every day, without ever realizing what it's costing them. Now here's the dangerous part. Your brain adapts. When constant stimulation becomes normal, you stop noticing it. The same way people stop noticing the sound of traffic after living near it long enough. The noise doesn't disappear. You simply become used to it. And that's exactly what happens mentally. Most people have become so accustomed to mental noise that silence feels strange. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to sit quietly? No phone, no music, no video, no distractions, just your thoughts. For many people, that feels uncomfortable, not because silence is painful, because the brain has become addicted to switching. And when switching stops, withdrawal begins. Suddenly you feel restless, bored, uncomfortable. The mind wants another input, another notification, another distraction, another reason to move its attention somewhere else. This creates a vicious cycle. The more mentally exhausted you become, the more you seek easy stimulation. The more easy stimulation you consume, the harder focus becomes. The harder focus becomes, the more exhausting everything feels. And eventually people reach a strange conclusion. They assume they have no energy. But energy was never the entire problem. Attention was. Think about the moments when you felt truly alive. Maybe you were creating something, learning something, playing a sport, having a deep conversation, working on something meaningful. What did those moments have in common? For a while, your attention stopped scattering. It became concentrated. And concentration is surprisingly energizing. This is another thing most people never hear. Focus creates energy. Distraction consumes it. We usually assume the opposite. We assume focus requires energy, and it does, at first. But once attention locks onto something meaningful, the brain becomes more efficient. The constant switching stops. The mental friction decreases. And suddenly you're no longer carrying 50 tabs in your mind. You're carrying one. This is why a person can spend 3 focused hours on something meaningful and feel energized afterward, while another person spends the day jumping between apps, messages, videos, emails, and worries and feels completely drained. One worked harder, the other switched more, and switching is expensive. Now let's raise the stakes, because this isn't just about feeling tired. It's about what tiredness steals from you. When you're exhausted, you stop chasing difficult goals. You stop learning. You stop creating. You stop being present. You stop noticing opportunities. You stop becoming the person you wanted to become. Not because you don't care, because you're mentally depleted, and the tragedy is that most people spend years blaming themselves. They call themselves lazy, undisciplined, unmotivated, when in reality they may simply be carrying too much mental noise, too many open loops, too many unfinished thoughts, too many directions. The good news is that the brain can recover, not overnight, but surprisingly quickly. Every time you remove a distraction, you create space. Every time you finish an open loop, you recover attention. Every time you focus on one thing instead of 10, you reduce friction. And slowly something interesting begins to happen. The fog starts lifting. You think more clearly, you feel calmer, you feel more present. And perhaps most importantly, you stop feeling exhausted all the time, because the hidden reason you were tired was never just a lack of sleep. It wasn't a lack of motivation. It wasn't a lack of discipline. It was the cost of being pulled in 100 directions at once. So the next time you feel exhausted, ask yourself a different question. Not, how much did I do today? Ask, how many things demanded my attention today? Because the answer might explain more than you realize. And once you understand that, you stop treating exhaustion as a personal failure. You start treating it as a signal that your attention needs protection. Because your attention is more than productivity. It's more than focus. It's the lens through which you experience your entire life. And whatever controls your attention eventually controls your future.